Hi, and welcome back to ConTinual. Tonight on the panel room, we're going to be discussing fandom in fact and fiction with nothing but our panel of fangirls here. Let's go around and let everybody introduce themselves before I get myself into more trouble. Jeannie, you're up first.
Oh, man. Hey, everybody. I'm Jeanne Adams. I write urban fantasy, paranormal romantic suspense, and space adventure with my friend Nancy Northcott.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Doll Books. I also write under a variety of other pseudonyms and in all lengths and genres.
Seanan?
Hi, I'm Seanan McGuire. I primarily write urban fantasy, modern portal fantasy, comic books, and tie-in fiction.
And Hansi?
I'm a proud fangirl and have been documenting fandom for the last 20 years, specifically women in fandom. And the actual panel was supposed to be fangirl representation in media, but we can broaden it.
So now that I'm already going to be in trouble no matter what I say for the next however long. So I want to kind of start with that notion of when we talk about fangirls, right? We've seen this change throughout time, both in how fans are represented in fiction and in fact, and then how we also see fans act out there in reality. So Jeannie, I'm going to start with you, kind of looking at what is your notion of how we describe a fangirl, for good, for bad, for ugly, and for fun.
Well, I think it's actually precisely good, bad, and ugly. I think there's a perception that fandom is, like what we were talking about before we started the panel, is the craved Beatle fan with his screaming and the Elvis fans like prostrate on the floor fainting. And, I think there's probably some of that, but there's a lot of that in the football stands too among the guys. And I think that fandom, especially for women, is a great social space to connect with people. It's a great place to build rapport with people who love something you love. And I think we've got some great things to be fanning about. So that's kind of like swanning around, isn't it? Fanning about. Anyway, I just think it's a great social construct, and I'm a fan. So,
Jenny?
I got lost in Jeannie's discussion. What is the question?
Good question. No, I kind of want to just throw out there, how do you look at fandom overall, right? Especially fangirling, since that's kind of the topic we're diving into. Right.
Okay. Yeah. You've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good are people who are respectful, who love your stuff, who come up and maybe they've made something that by themselves for you or found something they think you'll like. And those fans are wonderful. There are the crazy fans, of which I'll put, my husband always reminds me, remember, fan is short for fanatic. And, when you go into sports, I'm a huge soccer fan. I will scream my head off for my variety of teams. So I can take that fangirling right over there without a problem. But you've got, bring it more into today. One Direction, the mostly girls who loved One Direction it was like the second coming of the Beatles. And then there's the ugly, and the ugly are the people who think they own you. Or they're either dangerous to you, or they're so, you want to write back, I'm not your entertainment slave. And those people really give the other two a bad name. And they are in both genders. But I think the female side gets a little more hauled out on all of it.
You got your misery.
Yes, yeah. Right. Yeah, you've got misery. That's like your worst fan experience you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. Or like Becky in Supernatural, like the fangirl who's so obsessed that does horrible things,
Yeah.
That has no boundaries, that doesn't understand boundaries.
Right. Yeah. That you've become something that they feel they own versus somebody they want to be close to. And there's a fine line. Close to is great. Own, no, thank you. So,
Shauna?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So I know we're talking about fangirls today, and that is a very important focus to have, but it's interesting that we talk about the fangirls as being the scary ones. I have never had a fangirl threaten to rape me. I have never had a fangirl threaten to rape my best friend in front of me so that I would understand her disappointment in a choice I had made. I have had male fans threaten both those things.
Oof.
The idea of the deranged fangirl or the over passionate fangirl somehow being the one thing that crosses the line into dangerous and inappropriate is incredibly misogynistic. And we all do it as women because it is the background radiation of the culture in which we live. We hold to the schema of story we see, but the scary fans that I have met almost always have been cis male, have been coming from a position of privilege, and this space is already mine to own. I did a convention on the East Coast where they actually asked me first day as one of their guests of honor, will you be one of the ones that's a bitch or no? And when I looked confused, they said that most of their male guests would come to the bar after programming was over for the evening and hang out with the attendees and have a beer with the fans and have a nice time. And most of the female guests were bitches who would immediately go and hide in their rooms. And I was like, why do you think that is? So I think it's really interesting that we, as a panel of almost entirely women, are already starting down this path of the female fans feel ownership. The female fans are scary. The female fans are hysterical. When no, the female fans are passionate the same way the male fans are, but the male fans sometimes take that a couple steps further.
I want to clarify that, like, in no way was this panel saying that there weren't male representations of fandom either. I just specifically was like talking about female representation in the media.
Well, because the representation in media is actually terrible. It is misery.
Yeah.
Misery.
Well, it depends what it is. I mean, look at Supernatural. There were at least 4 different versions. There was, you had Charlie, who's a fangirl who wouldn't want to be Charlie, right? And then Becky, who's toxic. And then they had the young women who did the play, who were awesome. And then there was, what was another fan? Oh, their publisher, the publisher for the Supernatural books. She was a little on the obsessed side with the tattoo and stuff, but she was still, positive.
That representation is almost always being designed by men. And culturally, there is nothing more shameful you can be in our culture than a teenage girl. Just period. It doesn't matter what you're a fan of, what you love, what you're passionate about. There is nothing more shameful you can be. I do not agree with this statement. If you've just tuned into our panel for 30 seconds, please don't throw rocks at me. But I was a teenage girl and I got to experience this. And what's more, I got to watch what happens when my primary fandom gets colonized by men with Generation 4 of My Little Pony. I've been a My Little Pony collector since 1982, when the franchise started, before I knew what a collection was. I have loved My Little Pony my entire life. And when men suddenly became interested in it, they completely retooled the franchise. Hasbro rebuilt My Little Pony so that it would be better for the boys. And you actually had My Little Pony fans talking about buying the toys by snatching them out of the hands of children and destroying older generation toys because they were disgusting and fat and didn't deserve to exist.
Look, there's toxicity in all fandoms. There always, I don't want to make this a panel about,
Well, let's actually start with let's kind of hit there are positive notes to fandom.
Oh yeah.
I kind of want to start with down that path. I mean, because I think we're going to hit in both, some of the positive and the negative and the challenges we face, both how we see it represented in fiction as well as how it really plays out in real life, right? So just kind of starting down that path of, and because we've already started down this, I want to kind of continue this notion. How do we see things in fiction? I mean, because again, let's just start with misery. We tend to see it presented from the rabid stalker fan, the one who's, all the fun, horrific things that go on as a part of that level of story. So let's actually talk about why you guys think that is the first level of representation we tend to see in story. So Jenny, I'll throw that to you.
It's written by a man. Okay, I'm sorry. I know that makes me sound like I hate men, and I don't. I'm happily married to one. have men all over my life, but it's written by men. And there is a fear of things. And I'm not saying this is it, okay, but for me personally, the only two representations of dangerous male fans, maybe three, Taxi Driver, The Fan with Wesley Snipes and, by the way, Robert De Niro. I think De Niro's in everything. And then the one, King of Comedy. In those, King of Comedy does have a female help.
I love that scene where she ties him up, gaffers tape, and is having a romantic dinner. That is one of my favorite fandom scenes ever.
But she's completely right. But those three are the only representations I can think of where a male fan is dangerously involved. Otherwise, the guy who can't get married till the Red Sox win the series, that's treated as that's just cute, right? That's insane. Okay, but all of our representations of male fandoms, football, baseball, all the sports, all the things, it shows that, your passion gets you through. Whereas when women are being passionate, we're just being hysterical.
I don't want to disagree, but I want to get off the comparison of male to female fans and just talk about female fans in media if we can.
Right. So where I'm going though,
Hansi, I actually want to go through this kind of a notion because again, this is part of the presentation of
right. So I can only think of three male. I'm sure there are more. Okay, but I personally can only think of those three. Whereas I'm sure if I just tried even a little hard, I could come up with again. Any kid who liked One Direction was humiliated for it. The Beatles, Elvis, et cetera, et cetera. Misery stands out as your quintessential example of female fans are dangerous. She's a nurse. She's hurting him. Someone who's supposed to care for you. Now, it's a horror story, and I get it. Okay, but still, it's a female fan, not a male fan that was chosen to be scary. Now, some of it is that we're perceived as weaker, so it's scarier to men if a woman is attacking you. But I really think there's a lot of terrible representation out there. One that I actually think is a really good representation of female fandom is 80 for Brady. It also was made in the last 5 years. It shows 4 older women who have joined together their love of Tom Brady as a sports player, as a football player. And it's a wonderful movie, and they aren't shown as crazy. They aren't shown as weird. It's just, this is what they want to go to the big game, and they're going to do it no matter what. And they're clawing their way through, and they get to meet Tom and all this other stuff. It's an actual positive portrayal. It required Jane Fonda, Sally Field, Lily Tomlin, and oh my God, I'm really sorry to whoever.
Rita Moreno. Isn't it Rita Moreno?
I don't remember, but it was another really great actress. Okay, we fired 4 well-known, renowned actresses to get that thing going through. But that's
as a major lifelong football fan,
yeah,
it was a wonderful thing that it was a positive visual of women in fandom in a fandom that wasn't, sycophantic, really, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was showing how much they love the team, and because I've been a football fan forever. And the mansplaining is ridiculous, but I've never let it damage my enjoyment and my fandom, but it's been a hard job not to let it. But that movie was, even though I don't like the Patriots or Tom Brady, that movie was really charming in its portrayal of fandom in a more positive light. And I think, to your point, Hansi, I think we've, especially in the last 5 years, as you indicated, Jenny, we've had so many more positive visuals of fandom, the K-pop movement, the Babes, Beyonce's crew, not to mention the Swifties, and that's all been able to sort of change the narrative a little. I mean, still not great, but especially the K-poppers, because that was a mixed fandom, male and female, and that was just, those folks are fun. They're just fun.
So Shannon, I guess I'll throw to you. For your kind of how you've seen, especially fandom presented, how does in fiction? Because I am wanting to go from fiction into how do we really see it not in the nonfiction? But from a fictional world, we tend to see fans presented and fandom, and especially fangirling, as a negative when we see anything presented in fiction. So, what is it like for you?
We see more positive representations of fandom than we used to in fiction. We just recently had Turning Red from Disney Pixar, which is about a group of girls who are all massive fans of a boy band that was obviously manufactured to be safe sexuality, which is very much a thing that a lot of real flesh and blood non-animated girls experienced. They market teenage boys slightly older than your age range that you're meant to fall in love with and fantasize about without the fear that they're going to hurt you.
Remember the teen magazines?
Yeah, mine
still
was
there.
the Monkeys.
Mhm.
Theirs was not Forever, Four Town. And that whole movie is about the transformative power of fandom, about them moving toward their fandom, trying to be fans and trying to live and be happily fans. My Little Pony, Generation 5, you have a main character who is explicitly a fan of the main characters from Generation 4. And that is presented as a strength and something that is good for her. You do see fans. I just rewatched Galaxy Quest recently.
Oh my God. Yes.
I try to revisit certain movies to make sure the suck fairy hasn't come while I wasn't looking. And Galaxy Quest holds up
It does hold up.
brilliantly. And the
It does.
core of that movie is fandom. The Thermians are fans, but also the fans back on Earth are the ones that are able to save the day. And they do that in a gender neutral way. Yes, absolutely. But they do that really by centering the male members of the little human fan group. So there's not really a lot of fangirl representation
There's one.
for that particular
We got to
film.
see the girls that faint. Don't forget them. I still love Galaxy Quest, but when at the end, when our captain kisses Sigourney Weaver,
Oh yeah, you're
the
right.
girl faints from her excitement over this. So it's still there. I mean, but I love the movie.
Mhm.
I love that movie, and because it is a loving, it's a loving take on Star Trek.
It's a love letter to fandom. But part of why I do feel I don't want to be all about the gender on this panel, it's not fun for me, but part of why I feel like the gender conversation is inescapable is that sort of thing. If a male fan is a major character, he's almost always level-headed, able to save the day, respectful, thoughtful. If it's a female character, we're back to Mean Girls. Everyone in this school humps my leg like a chihuahua. The female fans are always irrational. They're always hysterical. They're frequently sexually inappropriate. And that is very much the fiction. And that is part of why it's difficult for female fans to get any respect or forward momentum in the real world, because we take the schema of the stories we are told and we overlay them onto real life as an example of how the world ought to work.
Hansi, you're shaking your head.
So, Hansi, I know
I have my perspective on all of this is so different. For me, even the cringe fangirls, there's a part of me that's like, I get it. I love them all for just being obsessed with something. I mean, Scorsese said or Coppola, I forget, said, that's the job of the filmmaker to like get you obsessed with what I'm obsessed with. And I'm obsessed with, fandom, especially fangirls. And I think like the fangirl I would say represents me best would be Riff Randall in Rock and Roll High School. That's the kind of fangirl I am. I'm like with the megaphone, like whoever is my favorite writer or whoever, I'm like, hey, check this person. And disruptive. But there's I think we've seen a lot of changes, and I think, there's probably is still the harmful of the screaming fangirl, but I think that's changing. And I think you see it more with the younger fans too. I think as fans age, they realize, this is the person, their role is not who they are. you know,
Yeah.
because I see a lot of very
I'd
young
argue that on
fans.
the aging. I'd really argue that. Yeah.
I see a lot of very young fans on TikTok, like really crying over characters, you know, and, you know, yeah, sometimes if I'm watching it, a tear, but it doesn't stay with me like that, like younger fans. So I do think there's something to aging. And also, you know, when you're working with people who have fans and you're on both sides of it, it's a very different thing, which is what you guys were all talking about.
I just think that younger fans are more willing to let their emotions out, and the older you get, the less willing you actually are.
Well, but also when I'm talking about toxic fan portrayals, I'm talking about the media. There is no such thing as a toxic real fan unless you are touching someone else or stalking them or deliberately harassing them on the internet. If you just want to scream and squeal and maybe pass out, and that's who you are as a real person, go for it. You know, it's like we have slut walks in the real world where people get, and they're called slut walks. I am not being pejorative, where people take off all their clothes and walk down the street naked to make the point that they should be allowed to. And they are right. They should be allowed to. And as real people who are making that real choice, I do not judge them. Now, if you write a short story wherein your main character participates in one of those walks and it's not for a narratively important reason, I am going to assume you just want me to picture bouncy boobs. And at that point, I'm going to judge you a little as a writer. Do your fandom however you do your fandom. I met Bonnie Zachary, who created My Little Pony, and just started sobbing. I could not cope with the fact that Bonnie Zachary was in front of me as a real person, actually existed. And I'm sure I looked hysterical to the people around me. But I'm a real person. A man did not write that reaction. So there is no such thing as cringe, and there is no such thing as inappropriate if you're real and you're not touching someone.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my earlier days of fandom, I'm a lot. And I have visually seen a few, you know, celebrities like back it up a little as far as restraining order. But definitely, like, my squee was overpowering, and they were just like, okay.
Well, the first time I ever met Nora Roberts. Oh my God.
I grew up in Southern California, and you're literally raised from birth to leave celebrities alone. So
yeah, same in New York.
Literally. So I have never done that because they're just people. I mean, they're people, they're out at lunch, you don't disturb. You know, if it's your favorite, maybe you go by and you know, wave. Or, you know, if they look like they'd be willing to talk, maybe you can go up and, you know, you're my favorite actor and then splint. But I don't do that because I was raised not to. It is considered horrible form.
I met Vincent Price once when I was a very young person, and I proposed marriage. And he told me to come back when I was older, so I clearly did not grow up in Southern California. Hi, Mom.
Yeah, so I would not have. I didn't approach Nora. I just was. It was at a RWA, and I was over in the corner going, "Oh my God, it's Nora!" And I actually have come to know her and really appreciate her very much as a human being. But it is funny, your reaction to seeing someone who is, and like Shannon said, is somebody that whose work you respect so much, whose creativity you respect so much, whose, you know, presence in the world has affected your life in a positive way. I just think it's so wonderful. But I also want to make the point that I think, Hansi, something you said earlier kind of triggered this for me, and I want to say it before I forget it. I think a lot of people who are in the public eye now are willing to say, hey, you know what, people, I'm real and I'm flesh and blood. Don't throw your freaking phone at me. If you want to come to my concert and you want me to continue to perform these concerts, don't do that. Don't hurt each other. Don't stop my concert this way. Don't do that thing. And when you call those people out, I know Pink does it a lot. She's stopped the concert.
They had a baby at one of her shows.
Yeah. And she's like, you know, nope, I'm real up here and I'm happy to entertain you, but don't do that. Yeah.
Well, and so let's actually kind of migrate from this notion of how we see it in fiction. Because I mean, I think we've all seen generally it's presented as a negative.
Mhm.
But I think that we can also look at how fandom has shifted. We started talking about Elvis and the Beatles and, all the, everybody swooning and screaming in the aisles and all that kind of stuff. But we've seen this change. But again, I think part of the power of fandom is that love and that passion for whatever it is, right? Whether it's sports, whether it's concerts, whether it's actors and performances. This notion that everybody is different. Everybody has this bundle of biochemistry. And if we're doing the things that we're supposed to do well, we're getting the reaction we were trying to get. That notion of fandom, love, adoration for the work and for the things that we do. So, Shauna, let me throw this one at you. With that notion in the real world, what are the things that you want to get from fans, fandom, and all that notion?
I mean, things I want to get from fans are generally Diet Dr. Pepper, which they bring me a lot of at book signings, so I'm okay with that. But fandom is a community. We are united by a single passion. To a certain degree, fandom is the same as being in the same college track or being in the same religion. You don't necessarily agree with everyone else who practices your specific denomination, but you have that unifying factor that tells you, these are my people. I can be a little bit safe here. And as with religion or anything else, the bigger it gets, the less that unifying factor actually serves as a uniting band. You can't trust every single person in your fandom to be playing fairly, to want everyone to have a good time, necessarily. I've been attending San Diego Comic-Con since I was 16. I have seen it go from you could walk up on Saturday and buy a badge to a roving city that you have to plan for years in advance to get into. I used to feel genuinely safe falling asleep on the floor of a friend's booth at San Diego. And now I don't like to sit if I can't see all my bags, because there are too many people there that are outside my narrow resident stretch of fandom.
No, it's a mess. I wouldn't go back unless I was on a panel.
Yeah.
Just a mess.
I love it. I like being in the room.
Yeah, I like being there. I like being a blood cell in the body of something so much bigger than me. But what I want to get out of fandom is mutual respect and kindness. I have worked very hard with my readers to sort of train them that we treat each other nicely. We are not mean to one another. If someone brings a baby to a book signing, we cheer for the baby. We're not mean to the baby. And I get very grumpy at authors in my same relative weight class who don't do anything to model good internet behavior for their readers, who don't try to keep them well behaved and not being assholes to other people. Because what the fuck are you doing if you're not taking care of your readership? What are you doing here? Go away. And when I am a fan, I just try to carry that same respect into the space of the peoples I adore. Because I am a fan of a lot of things. I am a part of multiple fandoms. Some of them I am lucky enough to also be a professional in. I write Magic Story for Magic the Gathering, but I play more Magic the Gathering than an adult woman should. Unless you are good enough to make the Pro Tour, which I am not. I've been playing for 30 years and I am still not particularly good at the game. But I'm a big fan of it. It makes me happy. I just want people to be happy.
So Hansi, how about you?
What does being a fangirl get me? Is that
well? It's what as a fangirl, right? And as a producer of projects and documentaries in the fan space and everything else. What's fandom to you? What is it you want for yourself out of it? What is it you want other fans to get out of fandoms?
I love hearing the stories, For me, it's all about people telling stories about when they discovered they were a fan, that first, autographed photo. I just find all of the stories fascinating, even the cringy ones. And I'm not sure why. It's just but like I said, I was brought up in the business, and I remember crying when I got my autographed picture of Adam West, from Batman. So I've always identified as a fan. I identified more as a band fan up until Buffy. And that was a very different culture because it was like CBGBs and Maxes. So you could talk to the band. So I was used to being able to talk to them and not,
I know. Makeup artist tonight. And I bought some because it was $1.79 a pound.
So,
Hi.
Jeannie, how about you?
Forgive the barking. I've been a fan of various fandoms literally, since I was a baby. I truly am one of those fanatical football fans. I love football. And me and Peyton Manning, man, there's a whole series Peyton does about football. And, I married another fan. He bleeds Cubby Blue, the Chicago Cubs. That's his deal. And so it's nice to be with somebody who understands fandom and understands the passion that comes with it. I think what I get out of it is, as we've already all referenced, is that sense of community, that sense of tribe, like Seanan said, of even if on the edges, maybe we don't know a lot of the same things or like a lot of the same things at the core, there's something that we all root for. And I think fandoms do a lot of positive good in the world.
absolutely.
And I think that, being united over something that gives you joy, even when your team loses, poor Chicago Cubs. Y'all.
I'm a lifelong Gamecock. I'm used to losing.
Well, and I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, so wow. But when you have that fandom, it brings together people that you might not otherwise have met in a million years. And you could be, it's a leveler. You could be, a bricklayer sitting next to a neurosurgeon sitting next to a TV star. Mm-hmm. And you're not focused on who you are. You're focused on who they are. And I've seen that so much, and it's given me a great deal of joy to see it clashing football and fandom with the whole Swiftie movement, where and everybody was so, about it. And I was like, this is awesome. Do you know how many fans this brought to football who would never sit down? And there were people who were talking about their kids, boys and girls, who would never have sat down and watched a football game with either one of their parents, and did because T Swift, right? Yeah. Even if they weren't showing her, which she actually asked them not to, right? Please don't focus on me. And you had people from the broadcast booth to the frontline fans standing in line to get into the stadium going, no, it's great. It's fabulous. Combining two things. Awesome. Peanut butter and chocolate. Let's do it. And so I think what fandom brings for me is a sense of community, a sense of belonging, that there's that tribal aspect of it, especially with football, that's just fun. It's just a fun space in which to be. And Hansi, you said something about Buffy, big Buffy fan. And so
my internet, like TV fandom, with the message board, the bronze.
Yeah. And it's so creative where, wonder why they took this storyline this way. Wonder what would happen if it went this way. And
try not to watch spoilers for next week.
Yeah. But the creativity of the fandom is astonishing. It's astonishing. And it gives people a framework to be creative that they might not otherwise have. So yeah, I'm super positive about it. Now, have I had the same experience as Sean has had? No, thankfully. But it's also one of those things where it's the fandoms that I've been a big part of aren't bent that way. So I've
run into some misogyny in the horror community fandom.
Yeah. I think you're going to find it anywhere.
Yeah,
it's going to take us another couple generations to breed it out if we even can. But I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah,
because there's a heck of a lot of boys at T Swift concerts and Bay concerts. And
I'm taking my grandson to his first con in like
Yay!
and even though two people from What We Do in the Shadows are going to be there,
Oh, cool.
he won't let me cosplay. He's like, no cosplay. I know. And I'm like, why? He's like, people I know might see you.
Legitimate.
He's really into gaming. So I'm just going to do all the gaming stuff and let him see, and when he sees kids in costumes, his age, gaming costumes, then maybe next year he'll be like, yeah, let's do it.
He'll be all over it. He'll be all over it.
So Jenny, how about you from that fandom perspective, right? Because I'm going to loop back around and talk about the fangirling aspects, but from that fandom aspect, what is it you're looking for in the things that you're passionate about and people that are passionate about your work? All that. What is it you're looking for out of fandom?
Well, first of all, I really love my fans. My fans are, for the most part, truly awesome. They do not make me feel unsafe. In fact, if someone is making me feel unsafe, there will always be a fan of mine somewhere nearby to help get rid of that. I have levels, I have the super fans, and the super fans tend to know each other, even though they don't know each other in person necessarily. But, they're the ones that are always there. They talk to each other. When one of them passed away a few years ago, unexpectedly, it was a whole little group of us mourning. It wasn't just me knowing that I'd lost this important person. It was a whole bunch of us, and we still miss her, and it's something that there are only a few people I can say, gosh, I really miss, God, I still miss Beth. Right. And then I get it instantly. But I want my people to be kind. That's really all I'm asking for. Be kind. Well, buy my books and leave reviews would also be really super nice. I'm not going to lie. I really would like
Exactly.
that. Dang. Anyone who's listening, reviews, we all would like them.
And they're free.
Right. And I don't even care what number you give me. Just give it to me. Right. But I just want them to be kind to each other, to other people. If they're going to do anything, emulate Kitty, my heroine of the Alien series. If you don't know what to do, be like Kitty. Would Kitty do that? Then you probably should do that. That's kind of where I'm at in that. Well, I know. Shannon's like, I've read those books. What are you talking?
Yeah, I like Kitty, but if you are trying to do like Kitty, you are not invited to my house. I have way too many coat closets. And I really do not want any form of sexual activity happening in my coat closets.
I'll give you. I'm not saying have sex like rabbits, like Kitty and Martini do. I'm just
do like Kitty. She's banging in my linen closet.
Well, only if you're not there.
I would definitely not be in the linen closet with her, no, but he would make a noise like a jungle cat, and I'd think one of my escapees had happened, and I'd come in with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, there you go. But no, I'll give you. No, I'm not telling you to have sex like Kitty. I am saying, however, Kitty will kick a Nazi in the tenders, and I really think that's something everyone should emulate.
That's fair.
I am picturing a whole new line of merchandise here.
Yes.
But yeah, I just want them to be kind. I'd like them to be kind to me as well as each other and other people, but really be kind. That's, the golden rule is, as far as I'm concerned, the only rule that actually matters. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So if you're going to send an email, maybe send one you would want to receive, not a nastygram. However, when I get those, I usually reply with things they didn't know about and don't want to hear, and suddenly they have turned into, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. No, you didn't know. There's a really just a plethora of reasons why Aliens Like Us is as late as it is, and most people do not know those reasons. And so when I get that one-on-one, because I'm very accessible, I'm on social media and I have an email address basically so I can interact with my fans. Okay, so fans interacting with me doesn't bother me at all. I enjoy it. I consider that part of my job, to be accessible to people who love what I'm doing. You don't get anywhere if they don't love your stuff, right?
Right.
You can't be successful if nobody buys your things. So I want to be accessible. But there are some that call themselves fans that aren't kind, and I don't like them, and I do my best to avoid them. Some of them are unavoidable, but where it's somebody who's just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I am one bad afternoon away from blocking this person after I blow up on her page. And I don't, because that's not kind. But I want to, because she isn't kind. And I have a few of them. And most of them, again, if it's a one-on-one discussion, they get over it, but not a couple of them. And I just, I hiss. I see somebody, oh, it's something from that person, right? But 99.9% of the rest, they're all great. And that's how I want to be. I don't want to be the fan that walks up and says, well, I hated everything you did. Why am I there? Right? If I didn't care for it, I'm not necessarily going in and guns blazing saying, why I didn't like the last thing you did, because I don't have ownership of them. Okay. There are plenty of books or movies where I'm like, I would have written that differently, or I would have done that differently. And you know what? They don't need to hear that from me.
I try to stay on the squeeze side. Like, unless I have something nice to say, I don't say.
Or I don't show up. Right. And also my fandoms from when I was young were really, if I think about it, well, I was a big fan of Scooby-Doo, but I didn't know anybody else, right? I wasn't, name a Saturday morning cartoon. I was probably a big fan. I was into sports, but I was more into individual players on teams. So I loved the Rams while Jack Youngblood and all that group were there. And then they weren't there anymore and I didn't care. Right. So that's kind of how I function in with teams. I attach to personalities on the team or player positions on the team. And that's, I like it. I didn't actually experience fandom as everybody else is talking about it until I was a great big grown-up girl. Never knew this stuff existed until the internet. And then I stumbled.
I mean,
some of the people I met, they knew this stuff was going on for decades. And I'm like, wow, you mean like y'all know each other and talk to each other? How did this happen? Right. And it's not like I came out of, some tiny town in the middle of nowhere. I was in Southern California, but I didn't know this stuff existed. I knew, I heard about it, but a lot of the time it was like they probably make that up for the TV show, right? And no, they don't. But I didn't discover it until I was grown up, and I mean a grown up. I had a child by the time I knew this stuff existed. So it was just as fascinating. Oh my gosh, look at all this, right? So I'm glad I found it when I did, because if I had to find it when I first became an author, it would have been utterly overwhelming. But knowing it was there before I ever started writing was a good thing.
Well, and we started kind of with this notion of how the fangirl is represented in fiction, right? Mm-hmm. Stalkerish, misery, all the rest of this. But if we look at the reality of it, if we go back 50s, 60s and music and Elvis and movies and film, and we come all the way to today, even, and like you say, the Swifties, fangirls, very specifically as a fan base, tend to be much more powerful, much more emotive, and much more vocal about their fandoms and what they want, how they pursue that passion. And so when we look at things like this, to me, it often is the fangirl that has steered the paths of many things we find in entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Fangirls save shows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are the reason that Star Trek left.
We're working on it.
Well, I mean, when we start talking about Star Trek, right? It was the ultimate fangirl,
Joe Trimble,
that saved Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, so Hansi, for you, like you say, you start with the squee, right? What is the power of the fangirl to you?
Well, like you were saying, like Joe Trimble, like they did a letter writing campaign and got a third season for Star Trek. And I mean, that was before the internet, and they had to get people were donating reams of paper and envelopes and stamps and stuff. I mean, women have always been behind this community of fandom. And I think the stereotype is just more misogyny. But there's so many like strong women in fandom that you can look to. And I mean, look at Lindsay Burness. She wrote this book about being a fangirl, and it's so raw and so honest, and it's beautiful, and it's about really being a fangirl, like being swept up in this story that you might go a little crazy, but it's going to be fun, and you're going to laugh at yourself about it because it's a little crazy, but I think it's healthy.
Jeannie?
Well, I mean, I think that Hansi said it perfectly. Women have really been the fortress of fandom. They're the ones who have called people out. They're the ones who have supported and written letters when it was letters, and gone on media when that's all you could do, written media about shows, everything from Star Trek to, there was just something the other day I read that one of the new shows on the CW got another season because they were going to, and so many people complained that.
Good for them.
Yeah. And while it's not the be all and end all, it is something that is, I really perceive as a force for good in the world, in the sense that most of the time fandoms are an endorphin rush. They're positive. They give you a sense of belonging and a sense of place and a sense of community, sometimes for people who have nothing else. And yes, some of those people are a little bit over the edge because it is the only thing they have. And I am totally okay with that. I don't know. I'm with Hansi. I'm on the squee girl side. I think it's one of the best things ever because it does build community where there might never be any, across cultural lines, nation boundaries, you name it, you got it. And that goes from everything from Supernatural to the Swifties.
I don't think there's any with Hansi, not with Hansi here, because no one has said that fandom is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I wasn't implying that. I wasn't implying that. She just came before me. So I'm just building on what she's saying.
That's cool.
All right, Jenny, I'm going to throw it to you.
I think Tay Tay is the best example we could ask for in terms of what you should be as a content creator. She's smart, she's talented, she's generous, she's kind, she's politically aware, she's incredibly business savvy. She took on Spotify to protect people she doesn't know. I really want her to publish a book so she can protect the publishing industry. And her fans, therefore, are an extension of her, because that's part of fandom. You become an extension of the thing you love. So she's got this entire 2 or 3 generations by now, okay, of people who love her stuff and are therefore following her example. So I think that your fandom can be a very good thing. It can also be a very dangerous thing if you have a fandom around a negative, dangerous person. And that all the good things about fandom extend to a bad, charismatic person who it can do all the bad that someone like Taylor, countering all the good someone like Taylor Swift is doing. So I think there's always a dark side, because there's always a dark person or people out there who are more than willing to allow their fans to become bad. Okay. But thankfully, I think there are more who are not. I mean, every time someone complains when a rock band does a protest song of any kind, I just laugh, because that's literally rock and roll. 50% of it is protest song in each decade, right? So, I mean, I really respect someone like Dave Grohl, who also is trying to do his best, right? And put good out in there and have his fans doing good things. So I think part of fandom is are you aligning yourself? Is your fandom good or is your fandom evil? Right. And most fandoms are good. Most fandoms want to do something, a blood drive, whatever, so there's lots of different things that fandoms do that are good. Can you twist it to evil? Absolutely. And there are always people that are going to. So I think the idea is to try to align, hope that your fandom is a good one and stays good. I think the hardest thing is when you're in a fandom and it switches and all of a sudden, sometimes they're fast and sometimes they're slow and insidious. But when the fandom was loving and caring and suddenly turns really nasty, that is a hard thing because you who invested time in it, you have to make the decision, do I walk away or do I stay? And sometimes the safest choice is to walk away, sometimes stay and try to right the ship. But I think because humans are by our nature flawed, you always have those risks. So I just think in a fandom sense, everybody needs to go in with an awareness that just because person A says this, ask yourself, how is that doing, good in the world? How is that doing good for us, right? Good for our fandom, good for the world. And then, choose accordingly.
Shauna?
I like fans. I like fandoms. They are good. I do not like this headache. I also do not like the fact that the two kittens are now attempting to murder each other a foot away from my laptop, which is probably going to end badly for my laptop.
So let me kind of throw just a last one out there. What haven't we talked about around the fangirl, right? Hansi, I know you're going to have something.
Yeah, I do. There's an amazing documentary called Good Old Frida, and it's about
don't give them catnip.
Move her away.
It's about this woman who was the fan club for the Beatles before they were known, and answered all like their fan mail and stuff, and like knew all the secrets about them and never told anybody, kept them in a box in the attic, protected it. And only it was like in the last couple of years that they did this documentary that she talked. And even then she was very like polite about, like, she did date a couple and they were nice boys. But it was like, that's a good fan. Like, she kept their secrets. She respected them. She helped them out. I thought that was a good fan. So if you're looking for a good doc that'll make you feel good about fandom, that's a good
What's
one.
the name of it?
Good Old Frida.
Good Old Frida. Okay.
Yeah.
I just think I want to talk a little bit again about how great it is to have fans. I got a fan letter before Touched by an Alien ever was officially released, because the books had been sent to a bookstore in the Netherlands, and the owner said, "Oh, that looks good," and put it out 3 weeks early. And the fan wrote, she picked my book over Charlene Harris's, which immediately made me love her forever, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't even prepared for it. And a friend of mine said, I was so shocked. And then I got another fan letter. I was so shocked, right? And she's like, how do you expect to have a successful publishing career without fans? I said, oh, no, I expected to have readers. I just didn't expect to have fans. I'd never written a fan letter in my life. It never even occurred to me to write one. So, and it's probably a good thing, because I really would have been that horrible child demanding, just like Seanan said, I just read The Last Nero Wolf. Where's the next one? Right? I would have been that kid. Yeah, that would be very ugly. So I didn't even think that people did this. It was one of those, oh, sure, in the movies, right? In the books, but I didn't think it really happened. So I am always super thrilled. It's still oh wow, a fan letter. Oh wow, I've got a new follower. I'm pathetically pleased by things like that. So I really do like my fans. I like the fact that people love my stuff enough to support me, that people love me enough to be protective. Because when the nasty people are like, where's your book? Right? Someone is always coming on saying, she is writing as hard as fast as she can. Don't you want it to be good? Right? She wants it to be good. I want it to be good. That kind of thing. We'll wait forever. I love those people. They're my favorites. But I I love the fact that I have fans. I don't think I will ever get tired of the fact that I have fans. And my fans are therefore, in my mind, the greatest fans in the world. And everybody else's fans are number 2 or lower, even though I know that's not real, but in my world, it is. My fans are the best. All the rest of your fans are merely okay, unless we share fans.
My fans
and
are
then they're
better
also
than
okay.
yours. My fans are better than yours.
Yeah, my fans are better than yours. Right? Yeah. So yeah. So
Well, and it is such an amazing thing the first time as an author when you get a letter from someone who says your book made a difference.
yes.
You know, you got me through a tough time. Thank you. And you're like, oh, really?
I can't talk about them because they make me cry.
Oh, I get
Yeah.
all verklempt. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have somebody that says this character helped me see something or helped me make a choice that made my life better. Oh man,
Mhm.
you know, I'm 6 feet off the ground for a couple days. And yeah, I'm with you, Jenny. You just, and I am also, I'll second your comment. I probably would never have done that because I was raised in a culture of, well, you don't want to bother people, right?
Mhm. Right.
So coming from that perspective and that raising of, well, you could admire them from afar, but you don't want to bother them.
Mhm.
It would never have occurred to me to write a letter to someone until I realized that it actually helps an author to say, yes, I love your books and I want more. So please don't stop writing.
Yeah.
Because there have been a couple times where I've thought, really? And then you get an email from somebody or you see a note on a board or somebody puts something on social media that says, wow, I loved this book and it really helped me through a time. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll keep writing.
Yeah. Those come very often at the most important times too.
Yeah.
I appreciate my fans for putting up with me because when I saw the DVD of the Joe Lansdale doc, I didn't know that the slipcase comes out. So I autographed them on top of the laminate. So like the first 100 that went out are like, people are like, what? Signing that? And then somebody's like, you know, the thing comes out. I was like, there should be lessons in this. How to be a person who deals with fans, not just be a fan.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Shannon, anything you want to throw in on top?
Not particularly. We've kind of moved past my area of expertise and into let's talk about how cool our readers are. My readers are great. I love them. They really do bring me Diet Dr. Pepper, and that is the best choice any living human has ever made. I would die without it.
It's really good.
Well, and it's wonderful though that your fans think to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a really special thing because they know you through social media. They know you through the talks you give, the presentations you give. And they not only know to do that, but as several people mentioned earlier, there's the kindness there.
Yes. The kindness is wonderful.
Hey, Sean and I might need a Dr. Pepper. Let's get her one. You know, I just think that's great.
When fans like, yeah, I think that's sweet. And I always give Joe boxes of Nettles.
I told my
Well-
co-writer, make sure we don't put anybody drinking or eating anything we don't want to drink or eat, because the fans that are really paying attention bring you those things. And 'cause she's like, why do we have this character like kombucha? I'm like, because I'd rather die than ingest it. And if we put that in, then that's what they're going to bring us, with bright smiles and joy. And we're going to have to drink it in front of them smiling because they were thoughtful and we were idiots. So you pick a soft drink you like,
Yep.
or they can like Dasani. Right?
Yeah, I don't eat any baked goods that readers bring me because I have an immediate
Sure.
vomit reflex upon the
Also, God
ingestion of
knows,
anything with a pudding texture.
Oh,
I have had one baked good too many with an undisclosed custard center. Turns out that even ruder than I'm sorry, no, I'll have to enjoy this later is vomiting on the reader who brought it to you.
Yeah.
I don't
Not-
eat at signings. I'm so
You're making
sorry.
a
I'll
point.
save it for later. Yeah.
No such thing
There's
as
a
bad press.
There's a
Often
reason I
you
put scotch in my
found-
books.
Seriously, dude, start putting your brand. Don't just say scotch, put your brand. your brand. It really does matter. God bless them, by the way, for that. So.
Well, before we get out of here, let's make sure where everybody knows where to come stalk you guys. I mean, bring you their fandom. So, Jeannie, where can we find you? Website, social media, of course, that latest release they need to get.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You can find me at jeannieadams.com. You can find me frequently here on ConTinual. You can find me on most social medias as Jeanne Adams. And my latest release is a short story in the Mercedes Lackey anthology, Anything with Nothing.
Jenny?
JinnyKoch.com. I'm all over Facebook. If you'd like to sign up for my free newsletter, Hook Me Up, you can do so from my fan page, Hairspray and Rock and Roll. I'm also on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Pinterest. Supposedly I'm on Instagram, but I still can't make it work. My newest release is coming out. Well, as we're filming it, it'll be coming out next week. It's the first in my full-on just mystery, no cross genre mystery series. The first book is Falls Girl, co-written with my co-writer Levy Bayless, and so please get that. We're super excited.
Shauna?
I actually just had a book come out today, Aftermarket Afterlife, which is the latest of the encrypted books. This is a light year for me, so I'm only going to have one more release in 2024, which is Tidal Creatures. I am taking a couple of naps. I'm very excited about that. You can find me at www.seananmcguire.com and on basically any social media platform. If you can spell my name, you can find me. You can generally tell that it's really me and not imposter. If you're really not sure, ask them if they have a fresh, unseen picture of my cats. I respond with that as proof of identity. People who aren't me generally can't unless they've been in my house. And if they've been in my house and they were pretending to be me, they've probably met my baseball bat.
Or they were in the closets.
Yeah, getting it on.
Hansi?
I'm Hansi Oppenheimer, and everyone knows how to spell that now. Yay. I am the destroyer of worlds.
Yes.
And I'm online on pretty much every platform as Squee Projects. And what am I working on? I'm working on my cosplays for Dragon Con because I've got new ones, and they're going to be awesome.
Yay.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, speculativefictionacademy.com, creatingpros.com, and of course here at ConTinual. And we will see y'all again soon.
Bye.
Thanks.